can Bill, but
yeah, can we? That's fine.
Okay. Well, to be honest, there's not a huge amount to report from since last time, except to say that for those who don't know, Roz Savage, the MP for Cotswold South, drew the right to present a private members bill, and she's still making her mind up. As far as last time I heard, if anyone has any more insight to that, she seemed to be fairly predisposed towards the climate and nature bill, presenting that. Yeah, the last time I heard her speak about this, which was about 2 weeks ago, she was really encouraging people to lobby her, to express their desire for her to really exercise that right in favour of the climate and nature bill. So I hope everyone has lobbied their MP as well as perhaps send to her as well. I think the more the merrier, really, in this. But otherwise, I have nothing more to report particularly, as I said, unless anyone. But we don't actually have many within her constituency, do we?
It's in Lavington.
Okay, yes, Lavington, yes. Maybe John and Debbie, do you have anything to report on that side? You're on mute. Yeah.
That's better. Yeah, we've both put forward our ideas, haven't we? I think we did put climate up there.
I'd be very surprised if she doesn't go for that, given her background and her sympathies. So I would expect her to do that.
Yeah.
It would be well worth Sustainable Lavington and/or yourselves personally sending her a message, though. That's the point. The more messages you get, the more likely she is to support this particular, to introduce into Parliament this particular bill. She's got the opportunity to introduce one bill, and she's got more people lobbying her. So
yeah, we have done that. We during the election campaign, we got to know her a little bit, so we are in email contact with her and have done that. So I think she seems, fairly well disposed towards doing something on this.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the other thing she did say was that if you can lobby her, well, certainly other Lib Dem MPs, but also any MPs to pass on that message to her. I think the more pressure that she feels, the more likely she is to go that way. But she was being a little coy. I'm not sure what the alternatives were, but she may be just sort of trying to see what sort of level of concern and interest there was out there for that.
Cheers, Andrew, and me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I've written to my MP, Brian Matthew, and I've had, not only on this topic, but several topics, I've had no reply at all to any of them. So I don't know if anyone else has written to him or had trouble getting a reply from their own MP.
No.
Hey, well, Hazel, Margaret, a response on that?
Can I? Yes, I've just come back from Turkey, so I've been away a little while. But beforehand, 0 Hour got in touch. I think it was via WCA, and a lady called Amy. And I wrote to my local MP, who was Andrew Morrison, and continued on. And they really were pushing. And we did get I did get a long reply from him. So obviously it must be a set reply, but at least just push. And it was 0 Hour that seemed to be very much on the ball there, so. Yeah.
Well, I think it's fair to say that when we had Enya spoke with the group a couple of weeks ago, and Enya is the, what's her title? She's I think assistant to who's she? remind me, who's she? She's assistant to
Sarah Gibson.
Sarah Gibson, thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's been a long day. Yeah, and she was really very helpful, but she was saying that at the moment, particularly new MPs are being bombarded with all sorts of things. So don't hold your breath, I think basically was her message, but they all do get looked at. So I think it's fair to say they will get registered and acknowledged at some point. Andrew, you had your
Yes,
hand up?
I was just going to ask, was there any specific recommended way for A, the few people in her constituency to contact her, and B, for the rest of us in other constituencies, should we write to her? Should we write to our MPs and copy her in? Should it be by email, by letter with a stamp on it? And especially given what we learnt from last month's speaker, who's Sarah Gibson MP's assistant, Enya. What's the what do you think is the recommendation? I will add one thing, which is if it's
she's very active on Facebook, actually. If you look at Facebook, she's got her own profile there and she's very engaged with it. So
would you be able to put a link in the chat, do you think, on that? Maybe.
Oh,
if
that
not,
may
with
be
someone else.
some advanced technology.
Someone might be able to do that during the course of the evening. I will give my personal hint on writing to an MP. Put not only the nature of the issue and the subject of the email, but also where you stand on it, like stop whaling or keep allowing whaling, so that the subject itself tells the story, and might as well keep the body of the email short and not a huge long rant, because the MP personally probably won't read it. Just enough for it to be registered, what the issue is, where you stand, boom, boom, click send, job done.
And I think the other thing to say is if you can be, without going to length, but be quite specific about what you're asking, rather than just say, you know, we want to save the environment, whatever. Actually, this is, I want you to support, you know, put forward the can bill when you have the right to exercise the private members bill, because it's such an important thing. So I think be specific and as much as you can. Catherine, I think you got a hand up.
I've got my hand up. Can I go
Bill,
first?
sorry, beg you. Yeah, sorry, you were just
no, I wasn't. I was. I mean, in addition to that, I think it's quite interesting what Hazel said about contacting their own MP and not somebody from the Lib Dems, because I think that's as important as anything else, isn't it? Let's if it is going to go to private members bill, let's get people who aren't in that party supporting it. That's the first one, and the second one is, I think she may be under pressure from the party itself, Tony, to go somewhere else with it. Who knows? So I think it's good. We have to bear that in mind. But I endorse everything. Let's get as many emails, Facebook shots, whatever we want to do, out to her. I think it's just the right thing to do. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I endorse that. Catherine.
With regards to the Facebook, Roz Savage does have a Facebook page, and I commented on her post, and then they messaged, I don't know if it was her or an assistant, but actually messaged me back as well. So we had a little conversation about it over Messenger. And then for Brian Matthews, who is my MP, I used Twitter actually to contact him. I did direct message him, but then I have met him already. So, and he said, oh yeah, thanks for that. So Facebook and Twitter might be a good way of getting hold of them quickly.
Good point. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've put the Facebook link in the chat if anyone wants to.
Thanks. Judy. You're on mute.
Sometimes people forget that it really can make a difference to say, please respond. Ask them specifically to reply.
And perhaps, that asked them to say what way they.
Oh, yes.
She intends to vote. Yeah. Put forward,
But I look forward to getting your response to this request, sort of thing. It seems to make a difference.
Good point. Thank you. Yeah. Andrew.
Yes, one more thing. I can report that the video of Enya's talk to us is in limbo because she hasn't answered emails or texts since she gave that talk. No doubt she's snowed under being Sarah Gibson MP's assistant. We have asked her to allow us to show it in restricted contexts because she was a bit nervous. She thought she was no good and I thought she was brilliant.
Sure.
So we'll keep you up to date on that. And the other thing I want to say is, goodness me, we've got this agenda. We haven't got a star speaker on an amazing topic, but how many, the very large number of you here is very gratifying. There's at least 25, including screens where there's 2 of you. And yet we've got what I thought of as fairly humdrum, busy business agenda. And I'm particularly happy to welcome people that who may have come before, but I may not remember, as well as brilliant to see old faces. John and Debbie Sustainable Lavington, great. Joe Norman from Rawton, various other names, Tim Cliston with 1 name each. Welcome everybody and thanks for coming along. Let's crack on. I think we've dealt with that. We know exactly what to do and it's a fairly easy ask. So where we were in the agenda was we're coming to Green Open Homes, call for hosts and programme, Jacky, and also something about a thermal imaging directory. Thanks.
Hi. It's that time again. I think Julian's very kindly going to be able to put a picture up for me, Julian.
Yeah, okay.
So if we go with the Green Open Homes poster, that'd be great. I have to say, I'm welcome to lots of lovely hosts. Thank you so much for replying. Very grateful. Obviously we're building on, here we go. Thank you. We're building on the success of last time, which, just to remind you, we had nearly 50 homes open and over 200 visitors, which is pretty well a record. But what we're looking to do this time is to expand out beyond our green bubble and share our wonderful hosts' experiences to more people, and perhaps people who aren't already committed to the idea of transferring to green energy and improving their homes. So we are perhaps, this is the lovely poster I've sent out to all our hosts. I will be sharing to all our community groups, and you know, that will develop as time goes on. But if you could show us the next slide.
Okay, because they're all in different formats. Sorry, it's going to be slightly clunky. I've got to stop sharing and share the other one.
Yeah. Because the interesting thing about Wiltshire, as I'm sure you're all aware, is it's the 3rd biggest county in England, and it has Salisbury Plain right down the middle of it. So it's quite a challenge to organise a county-wide event. So I thought this time we'd look much more at focusing on different areas and really raising the profile of the sustainability groups in each area. We've got the lovely thing that quite a few, that's the Centre of Sustainable Energy has actually trained quite a few energy assessors in various communities. So they are already holding events. And of course, a lot of you in various areas already do hold regular climate cafes, regular drop-ins, or indeed energy events. So we'd like to really focus on what you're already doing so that you can promote Green Open Homes at those events. And we can also promote your events through WCA centrally. And also you can promote it in your own advertising in your area. And we're looking to have far more touch points beyond the green space or the green community. It would be absolutely wonderful if we could have a feature in every single parish magazine, as a lot of those drop through people's doors. Local community Facebook pages, local community newsletters. Now, this is where it does come down to you more as local organisers, because obviously as central WCA, we don't really know those people, whereas you can have far more impact locally. And we're also looking to promote the use of thermal imaging cameras as a really good way of communicating to people who haven't quite got the hang of the impact of energy loss through their homes and heat loss through the walls of their homes through drafts and poor insulation. A thermal camera is a really good way of demonstrating that. And we do already have several of you groups doing wonderful schemes like that already. You know, I'm aware of Salisbury. I know Bradford-on-Avon are starting one. Cairn already has one. Great Green Bedwin and Pewsey Green are starting a scheme for that. And I can also share that Wiltshire Council are about to release a scheme in October whereby people can actually rent them from local libraries, which I haven't heard the full details yet, but they are planning to launch that later on this month. So again, we can highlight that within our promotions. The idea being that we just promote everything energy-wise within the community, rather than it just being the small community who are doing it themselves, or the organisation themselves. Interestingly, Swindon, through Julian, we've got really good contacts with the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre. They're about to open a retrofit area or new retrofit house in the new year, and they've got a very dynamic chap called Nick Want who's in charge of that, and really keen to promote everything to do with home energy and retrofitting. With Julian's help, he's actually already been around some green open homes and met some of you. So I think and as luck should have it, the first Saturday of the green open homes period is actually a retrofit day at Swindon. So again, we can promote that, so you know, people can see all the things that are going on. So if you look at this, is a very rough draw around the map, but just showing how the green open homes that we already have signed up do fall into several different areas, already surrounded by good community groups who are already working in the energy sector. So, you know, and I hope we can work together on that. We'll still keep the overall umbrella of it being county-wide, where, you know, wider advertising and promotions are being done. But I think to have a local focus will have far more power. And they always say when you're promoting an event, you need at least 3 different types of touch point. So, you know, if it's on a local Facebook group, and they've seen it in the parish magazine, and they see a poster in the library, people will probably notice. But one of those isn't enough in its own right. So lovely. I know I'm getting to the end of my time. So Julie, if I could have the last slide.
Yeah. There you go.
So this, in summary, this is where we'd like you to all get involved and help. And what I will say, that map, obviously, it just showed where we are now. Please, we would love more hosts. And what I would also love to see is the current hosts we have are amazing. They're really good ambassadors for home retrofit. A lot of them have done it when they were literally pioneers, when it wasn't an easy thing to do. But we are now talking to people who maybe they can learn a lot from your journeys, your enthusiasm, seeing that you live in a warm house, your air source heat pump doesn't make a noise, you know, all the lovely things of having a green home. But we need other journeys as well. I would love to have journeys of people who have actually stuck their net out and built their own green home. Talking to Nick, that's one of the commonest reasons why people actually go down the journey of self-build, because they want to build a home, but once they've built it, not only is good for the planet, but won't cost much to heat. So that would be really lovely to have homes like that. Also, I think it'd be wonderful if we could have people who have maybe gone more on a guided journey. You know, we're now at a time when charities like Future Proof will actually provide advice all the way down the journey and help support people on that journey. I was talking to Bean Beanland yesterday, and he was highly recommending a company called Era, which can really help with the installation or the process of retrofit. And they do it by a sort of lease payment scheme. So not only is there lots of advice and support, but also the payments are evened out throughout the, you know, over a longer period. So it really helps people financially. And finally, I'd love to hear, I think it'd be great to hear from people who've taken up grants from Wiltshire Council or the Great Insulation Grant, or use Solar Together to put panels on their roofs. You know, hear their journeys too, because that's what we need to be spreading. So
thank you, thank you, Jacky.
Is that all right?
I've got a little hand up, couple of quickies.
Yes.
First, this is great for me because we've got to make that decision whether to have a heat pump, and if so, what to have, because our builders occasionally visit our house to do a bit of building.
Are you in, Andrew, are you in Bradford-on-Avon?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
I have a good news for you, because Bath and West Community Energy are running a scheme whereby you can have a free heat pump assessor.
That's fantastic. So on that subject,
it's just Bath. It's just where you're near the edge.
there's something my attention may have wandered. Thermal imaging directory is a note on this agenda item.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And I was wondering two things. One is how we're getting on with following up the people who visited homes last time round, earlier this year, to see where they are on their journey in a systematic way. You didn't answer at length at all now.
That is basically, as you know, Ruth has not actually running this event, but she, I believe, is still managing, though she's emailing all those owners and seeing how they're getting on.
Okay, and the other thing I want to bring up is the cheese project of Bristol, which
absolutely
I was surveying for them. They've pulled out of West Wiltshire, and I think Bath as well, because of some big fat grant to do surveys in Bristol. But I really think, and we are formally, Wiltshire Climate Clients is a member of Cheese Project CIC. Yep. And so I think it's...
I sent them a strong email this afternoon, so I'm hoping to hear from them.
I'd love you to forward that to me, because I've got some background about how they get on. And I hate to think that their wonderful process, which includes finding drafts and not just conducted heat losses, shouldn't be kept under their hat. Bit dog in the manger, maybe. Yeah. I'm not off the record, am I? Because this is videoed. But extended from Bristol, and maybe we can make some sort of special Wiltshire deal with them, or Wiltshire and Swindon rather.
I really agree with that, because Somerset have a special deal with CSE for having vouchers. And also the other thing with the Wiltshire Council scheme, they're giving out a what's next pamphlet with their cameras, and that is where we come in and where we could recommend further. You know, I very much view handheld self-done imaging as just a starter.
Thank you. That's useful.
You know, it's an entry level.
And Mel, thanks for the point you put in the chat. You got them to do an assessment. We'll crack on, shall we? This is obviously going really well. Thank you very much, Jacky, and everyone who's the team.
Can I just chuck a couple of things in, Andrew, please?
Sure.
Just before we go on to the next, retrofit advisors. Sorry, on that map, have we identified out of, I think, 11 retrofit, or maybe even more retrofit advisors we've now got, or we are talking to, or are part of WCA? Yes. Are they all allocated into those areas?
They are. They're all doing great stuff. Some are actually doing their own projects, like Warminster have started monthly energy cafes, so that we will highlight what they're doing there. Others are really involved. We've got a retrofit lead advisors energy group, WhatsApp group. We've had 2 meetings and sharing expertise, ideas. You know, but as to say, each, by dividing it into localities, they'll all have their different flavors. They'll all do different things, and that's really important. You know, that they make it their own. So
okay.
Yes.
And the second, just for everybody, the flyers you're talking about, we put a link to the JPEG of that flyer into our last mail out to everybody. So if you're looking for a copy of what Jacky showed, that's up there in the on the mail. Just go back to the mail and you'll find a link to it. So you can use that to print them directly.
Certainly. Or if you'd like A3 posters, I can print them out or mail you out copies of flyers and stuff. We can do that.
Lovely. Okay, so it's 7:30. It's both still you, Bill, because it's National Planning Policy Framework. Key points raised in the Wiltshire Climate Alliance response, and Bill was the hero who collated and coordinated and got that sent off.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Andrew. No, it was everyone else's inputs. That was I had the easy bit just putting it together. I think, have you got my email, Julian?
Yes.
I'll just see if I can load the thing up on my screen. Hang on.
The agenda is in the WCA members meeting, which I copied more or less from your email. So
okay, can we see that?
Right. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Right, I got it. I've done it for once. Wow. Okay, so if you look, this is just a very quick shot at what we did. I won't read every word of this, and I can put this in the chat so you can see it all. But I think I'm always trying to get to in all of this is it was a very interesting document with a lot of ambition in it in some respects. But there was a really dangerous part about it. It felt that they were leaving so many holes in it that the developers could leap through that actually they need to revisit it all. So we made quite a lot of comment on that. They did a huge thing on green belt and grey belt, but forgot about green fields. But we've tried to correct that. And then the problem with the number of houses, and the Wiltshire Council raised this as well, that the potential is for the whole system to be overwhelmed because of the processes. And again, developers have a field day just because they want to build 1.5 million homes. Really difficult things to deal with. How NPPF comes out, I don't know, but we'll see before Christmas, apparently. And the other big thing for me was that they expected local authorities almost to manage land availability, which is actually in the hands of landowners and developers. So it's they need to think about that too. So we've got all of that in the whatever question, however we answered probably, I'm guessing now, but probably 80-ish of the 106 questions. So we did put responses into quite a lot of it, even though it wasn't directly climate related in a lot of ways. Okay, so just the main points. The aspirations in the document, say, they need to be supported by updated design codes, because otherwise what they're asking developers to do, they'd ignore because there's nowhere for them to say, where does it tell me to do that? And then sustainable was used really badly, and it referred to continuous housing development as being sustainable, whereas obviously the sustainable that they refer to right at the beginning of the document is to do with sustainability in the climate and nature. So they've got to sort that out on it as well. So whether they do any of these things, this is what we've been saying to them. Under the infrastructure around the development, so it's supposed to be vision-led. The issue there is really to make sure that the infrastructure is first thought of before you start building a development with lots of people in it with no infrastructure. How that works in practice and time, another question to ponder on, but we said that they really do need to think about infrastructure first, because if you're not going to put schools or colleges or GP surgery or whatever in, then actually you'll just get more of the same as we've got already. And then the second part of that, of course, is that community needs should be a high priority in any development. So community needs means, what does the infrastructure look like? And I'm not talking but necessarily about roads, whatever. I'm talking about facilities that people would be using. Brownfield and reuse of things was a big issue for us again. Prioritize the underutilized land, and brownfield became a big issue. So we said incentivize brownfield somehow. Grant funding, the way you cost the whole thing, however it gets dealt with. And greenfield should be disincentivized, so forcing developers to look more closely at brownfield, which they don't at the moment. And then reuse, repurpose, because reuse and repurpose is always going to be less carbon hit than building new. So that, then affordability, not necessarily climate and nature related, but it needs redefining. Because as we know, it's only whatever it is, 20 to 30% reduction on the market price of a house. They're dealt with differently. There's a lot of empty houses that are called affordable, which some of the developers are now going to rent out. So it really does need redefining to make sure it actually addresses the need rather than just some tick box to say they've got affordable houses. Miscellaneous development on development, the new housing should be required to have a minimum net zero in the build and use, but it should preferably be not become carbon negative over its life. That's going to be a big ask, but they have gone part of the way to that in the NPPF. So it's not we're sort of pushing against a half open door there. Whether they push the door wholly open, I don't know, but we really did make the point that it does to be net zero minimum, not net zero maximum, if you see what I mean. And then travel infrastructure, active travel, and developers should be made to provide proper infrastructure for like active travel, etc., and to be integrated, not in the way they do it at the moment. Oh, we've got our footpath to the edge of the development. That'll do. You can do the rest. If they say that, then they have to up the 106 payments to make sure that the local authority actually does do it. And biodiversity net gain, we're saying should be delivered locally, because at the moment it's become an asset elsewhere to be sold to developers to tick their boxes. And you don't necessarily get it anywhere near you. It could be in Scotland, could be in Wales, could be anywhere that they're selling that facility on, so developers can effectively offset their biodiversity net gain elsewhere in the world, but not in our area. I mean, it should be local. As a minimum, a maximum, maximum range should be Wiltshire, but it should be in the areas we want. And then under the green energy part, there was an awful lot of good stuff in the green energy documentation. And actually, weirdly, they didn't actually ask for responses on a lot of it. We didn't think it went as far enough in some areas, and we've made detailed comments on that about solar and wind and other stuff. But it was a really breath of fresh air almost to look at it. And then one of the big issues was local energy generation must be a part of the developer housing planning. So when they're doing that, they've got to work out how they're going to get the energy to that development one way or another. Building commercial infrastructure, big issue for that is a lot of them are bit like data centers burn a lot of electricity. They need to be close to renewable energy sources to be able to deal with that. Any large energy supplier should be doing that. But the reverse is that commercial infrastructure should be built delivering local energy generation by using their roofs. That there is no reason at all why all buildings, logistics centers, whatever, shouldn't have solar panels on their roofs. Commercial infrastructure should be developed. I've done that bit. And then chapter 17 of the NPPF, I discovered I bumped into it, so just reading it through. It actually still gives guidance on how you apply for planning for gas, oil, and coal. So they've left it in, they haven't deleted it. So that was asked, could they delete it or rewrite it? And then we're hoping that the only hope after all of that is that the energy legislation they're pushing through Parliament over the next 6 months will strengthen all of their desires out of the green energy and the environment. So we don't know where it'll go. We don't know how we'll see the response and how we'll see responses on it. But I think the incredible input from everybody in the team. It was really, really good. And we let's repeat that sort of enthusiasm and energy when we deal with other things like this, because it really, really is a good thing to do for the group as well. Okay, that's me done. Any questions? Take that off and I'll take that on. Okay.
There's a question in the chat from Tristan. Could you use a multiplier to dissuade biodiversity net gain being provisioned remotely? I just naively thought that it had to be on site, but who knows about that? And
I'll make 2 points on that, Andrew. One, it might be a good idea, but the NPPF consultation's closed, so you have to get hold of your local MP and try to persuade them to do that sort of thing. A multiplier might be a way to do it. There was a lot of comment in the local plan actually on biodiversity net gain as well, which I've only skimmed so far, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, shortly. Okay, let's do questions, Tim, and then there's Joan. So Tim.
Hi guys. It occurred to me during the process of doing the NPPF that we need to engage earlier. This one might be a little bit exceptional because it was the new government coming in and just trying to, shove things through quickly. But I think in general, it occurs to me that the consultation phase is too late. So we might want to think about how we engage earlier in these processes going forward. Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah,
it was very helpful.
It
was very helpful to have the conversation and the dynamic engagement, because I think that built some momentum.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. I agree with you. The fact that we were talking to each other about a number of areas as the whole process, and now our positions changed slightly or got adapted or whatever as we were discussing it. Really, really helpful. I agree with you on your first point, but the question is, how do you do that? You could possibly anticipate that this is going to come out, or these things are going to come out by having maybe, I don't know, because the government don't actually announce it well in advance. I think this was probably pretty well publicised actually, but it's a challenge. I don't know quite how we would do that.
There were some hints, so I won't go on, but there were some hints in what Enya, I've forgotten her name, sorry, that spoke to us about the political engagement. I think the government does announce sometimes what's going to be coming before it actually sort of drops the green papers and the consultations, and getting the MPs to sort of get involved at that stage may be an angle.
Yeah, okay, we can actually do that and ask them to help us. Good idea.
Thanks. And Joan, you need your microphone on, or you still need to unmute.
Done. I know a bit about biodiversity net gain. One of the things that I've noticed is that to do off-site biodiversity net gain, you need a responsible body to manage it, and there are about 8, I think, responsible bodies approved at the moment. 2 or 3 of them, I think 3 now, are local authorities. So, for example, Northumberland County Council is a responsible body, and that means that they can buy, rent, or otherwise obtain land and manage it for BNG. So if you want BNG to be in Wiltshire, why not press Wiltshire Council to become a responsible body and actually provide it for developers in Wiltshire?
That's a very interesting suggestion.
We will ask them. Good idea.
I think it's in the pipeline that they want to get a local nature partnership by whatever name to be set up perhaps by next spring. Could be Swindon and Wiltshire Local Nature and Climate Partnership. I like to think that Wiltshire Council will be a safe pair of hands for biodiversity. And I want to acknowledge the well, I just want to say one other thing about that worries me about biodiversity net gain. Biodiversity isn't the same as biomass. Biodiversity net gain addresses the ecological emergency. Biomass net gain addresses the climate emergency, and biodiversity net gain doesn't directly address the climate emergency in my personal view. It's a small point. The other thing I remember was about getting in earlier. That's a strong point you made, Tim. If we were part of a regional network of county climate alliances, that might help. Or if we work through national bodies like Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, CPRE, that might help us to be engaged at a much earlier, more formative stage. We could talk about that another time because it applies across the board to everything we are trying to do. Sorry, I've taken up a little more time there. Is that covered, everybody, you reckon?
Andrew, I think you just Jess's comment in the chat.
Okay.
Wiltshire Wildlife Trust already doing that.
Oh, they all right. Yes.
They were not
fantastic, Jessica. Thanks. I didn't even know you were here yet, Jessica. Sorry. So that's Jessica's told us Wiltshire Wildlife Trust delivers biodiversity net gain and some more things as well, and you put a link in the chat. So is that enough on that for now, do you think? Because we want to talk about
Can I just say one thing, Andrew? I think biodiversity net gain is an important subject.
Yes.
And I suggest that in our land use group, just advertising it in advance, we will put that on the agenda at some point to have a proper discussion about BNG, how it works. Should it be the way it's working? Should there be a different model, whatever? So we will put that into the land use meeting, because I think it's not sure I agree entirely with you what you said about it not being on a climate issue, but we do talk about that sort of thing in the land use group a lot. So I think I'll put that on our agenda list. Okay.
That's great. Yes, thank you.
Can I
yes.
just say something? Sorry, I can't find how to switch on my video. I can't find my video. There is also the local nature recovery strategy, which is effectively defining the areas where there could be biodiversity net gain. And that's going to be a very important document that's valid for up to 10 years, between 3 and it's going out to informal consultation almost immediately for a short 3-week period. But it's going out to formal consultation next year. But it will set in concrete, effectively, areas in Wiltshire that are can be developed and can't be developed without paying a BNG penalty. So I would Google it. There's a strategy being developed by someone called Alison Levy, who's doing a fantastic job, although against a very tight deadline. And I think it's something that should be on the WCA radar.
Thank you. Yes, you've put it on a radar, and I suppose it links back to the green and blue infrastructure strategy.
Not really, no. It's
No?
completely
Okay.
different. Well, it isn't completely different. It talks about waterways, forested areas, but also picks out species and also chalk streams, but also picks out specific species which are it's literally map based
with layers,
with
There was
different
a
layers
webinar on it last Monday evening.
Oh,
because our local group has commented on it, so it's going through that process. I'll see if I can find the link.
There's a link in the chat Louise has just put in.
Oh, okay.
Out now, comments till the 11th of October. Goodness me.
Well, that's the very short term. Sort of, they're trying to get as much comment and informal into it as possible. So that's why they're getting two consultation periods. This is an informal consultation period
on the pilot,
but on the first version of the map.
Do we want to convene a task group that takes a look at that by any chance? Maybe via the organisers of the land use group.
I think it would be good if you could, yes. But there is quite a lot of time to comment on it, but not within the initial phase. but certainly to become aware of what's going on and how important it is, yes. And Wiltshire Council are the lead, but they're well supported by all sorts of landowners. Wiltshire Wildlife Trust is also involved, etc. So there's quite a lot of work going on that.
Thank you, Sylvia. And we have a hand up. Sorry, Bill, I'll cut to John.
That's okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, this is really just following up on Sylvia's point, where I was going to make exactly the same point, actually, that Wiltshire and Wiltshire Council have, as has been mentioned, they've got this preliminary kind of consultation on the draft map out at the moment, with the deadline, as you were saying, of Friday the 11th of October. And picking up on the point that, you know, if better to get in early on these things than to wait for the formal consultation phase. I was just very interested to find out if anybody else was in the process of commenting, because Debbie and I have had a look at the map with particular reference to our own area, and we can see that there is actually quite a lot wrong with it. There are vast swathes of areas that we know really ought to be prioritised in terms of the habitats for conservation or restoration or connection to others. And we're aware that, you know, there's a load of species, environments which are rich in different species that are also not mapped at the moment, because it is very, very much, we've noticed, a draft version. So I would just say to anybody who's interested in this aspect, you know, the biodiversity aspect of the effects of climate change, to have a good look at it, because yeah, it's a very impressive process they've got in place. That the mapping technology is very impressive. You can identify the areas you're interested in very accurately, and there's plenty of scope for commenting in a very precise way, and they've got precise definitions and so on and so forth. So if you are interested, you've got just over a week to get up to speed and comment. So there you go.
In this round. So it sounds as if it's very good consultation, makes a change, and people are in action. And if we want to add strength to our elbow, we need to coordinate.
Can I ask Andrew that if anybody wants to join a small group doing that, could you stick your or to help others do that, stick your name, email address in the chat, and then I'll pick them all up and put them together and set up a small group. It would be easier to set it up as a WhatsApp group, but that might be more difficult in terms of putting mobile numbers in. So if you want to put your email in, I will pick it up and I will send a note out to everybody trying to get something organized. Okay.
Thanks, Bill. Let's press on, and luckily we can make up a little time shortly, because the local transport plan won't have gone to cabinet next week. Local planning for the inspector. One or two of us have looked at the papers for next week's cabinet. I think no one that I know of has put in a question to cabinet for next week, and the deadline was noon today. Who can fill us in on this then? Because we're going to need to get ready for the examination in public that we can assume will take place. Anyone want to say anything about this? Or
sorry, can I just say something to start with? I'm not. I've had a quick look through it. Well, more than a quick look through it now, and I'm starting to get a feel of what it is about. But I've got more questions than answers, that's for sure, because I don't understand the inspector process and how they deal with all of the stuff that's hanging out, all the local plan as information as it's been issued at the moment. if you look at the information at the moment, there's an existing local plan in draft form which hasn't been changed at all after their November 23 public consultation. There's then another document which is 785 pages long, which is a complete, no, I won't say that's wrong. It is a list of the issues raised, summarized in sort of type order against each of the chapters. And each of those has got a list of who's asked the question, a brief description, probably modified mostly to make it simpler. But what happens in that document is the council don't say, and we've dealt with this, and we've dealt with that, and we've dealt with the other. It's just a list. And then you've got another document, which is appendix, I can't remember which appendix it is now, but and the other document says, these are the changes we're going to make. And those appendix, that one is the one that's fairly definitive, and that one is place specific. So where they've made a mistake in a map or a location or whatever, they're correcting it. And they've done that in that one. But that's all it is, it's place specific. So they haven't dealt with all the other issues about text, wording, anything else, and how climate issues are dealt with and whatever, all the comments again, all of that. And all the other things that are non-place specific that drive the rest of the local plan. They've just listed all the comments. Now that's my brief understanding of what I've looked at so far. My big question is, so how do you take the output from the comments, which are sort of non-dealt with, if you like, and turn those into actual changes to the local plan? And I don't know the answer, but if anyone does, please speak up. Margaret.
Yes, well, I was involved in the last local plan consultation 10 years ago and appeared before the inspector. So I think I can reassure you that it does say in the covering documentation for this local plan that all comments are passed to the inspector. So he doesn't just get that summary, which, as you can tell, doesn't really get the gist of the points across anyway. They'll have a mammoth task on their hands. But my recollection from last time is the inspector gets all the paperwork. He will then start asking Wiltshire questions. And one of the things he did, not for the last local plan, I can't remember, but certainly for the housing allocations that went to the inspector, he then actually insisted on a further consultation on the modifications they wanted to make. And I think they've been quite careful just to make modifications that are corrections, because you do have to consult on anything that you've made a major change. So they won't want to do that at this stage. It's up to the inspector now. He produces a list of, he's got your responses, which indicate whether you want to take part in the examination in public. He has to look at all the questions, all the issues raised, all the people that want to contribute to the examination in public. And he will raise a list of questions that he wants addressed at the inspection and a timetable to deal with them, and invite people who've raised the comments who want to come along. So I think it's over to him now. I think it will only aggravate them if you try and get involved further at this stage, because you're supposed to put everything on the table for that Reg 19 consultation, and then it's over to the inspector. My understanding.
Okay.
Thanks. That's really useful, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I know that says basically we've got to wait for the inspector to call, basically. But getting back to Tim's point, maybe we should be thinking about what are the key issues that we might want to go to out of our long list of comments that we did make. What would be our key?
Well, he is going to raise a list of questions that he thinks you've raised. So if you haven't made them clear in your representation, he may not get the questions right. And I don't think you are able to say, I think you should have asked this question instead. But so you really have to wait for his questions, because you may be able to sort of tailor an answer to what he wants to find out. but I don't know that there's much mileage in trying to do work ahead of him.
Okay. Tim.
I was just going to say that's really helpful, Margaret, because it sort of lays out where the process is. I presume we have put forward that would like to be involved in that public process.
Yeah, we have.
So
definitively in most of the answers, I think. Yeah.
That actually sounds like one we can leave alone for a bit then.
yeah, maybe. But we're going to have a busy early next year then.
Well, I mean, I
Okay.
wouldn't. I think timetables will tend to slip, to be honest. You know, because the inspector has got tens of thousands of pages to look at now.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Andrew. Yep.
That's okay. It must be like writing a book each time you do a local plan, with all the research. So yes, that was useful, and it's true that we have a moment of waiting. I was just wondering whether anyone else feels that there'd be some mileage in having a little meeting with some of the Wiltshire Committee of CPRE or any other organisation that's likely to want to be represented in a major way, just to compare notes and talk about process.
Again, just to come in, Andrew.
Yeah.
The inspector will try to get people to come together when he raises his issues. He likes people to come together and group together. But I don't know if there's any point doing anything ahead of when he raises these questions, you know?
Yeah. I think I'm with you, Margaret. Thinking about it, that we could dive in all sorts of directions and discover he's either not going to ask us questions or whatever.
There's going to be lots to do because Wiltshire have got a lot of background documents to produce, like LTP4, which still need to be consulted on. So I think we have to turn our attention to those.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Which is what we would say we would do, but they delayed it and it's now coming out on the 19th of November.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one final thing, Andrew, before we move on.
Sure.
There is a meeting, councillors are meeting with the chief planner, Nick, whatever his name is, who did the local plan tomorrow, and they are getting a briefing on it. So we may get some feedback from one of our friendly councillors after that meeting.
Okay. Thanks. Now, the next item is local transport plan consultation, but we thought the local transport plan or a report of some sort was going to go to cabinet next week and therefore would have been published the day before yesterday. That hasn't happened. I did have a one-to-one meeting with the cabinet member for transport, which is tomorrow, Ray from Devises. I'll combine this to two updates. Then one is that she says that there is a Wiltshire rail strategy, which has gone through a first level of consultation with kind of major rail stakeholders, and it's coming to cabinet soon, or it's being published in some form shortly, and we can take a look at that. She says that the rail strategy has been shaped by the realization that they needed a rail strategy in order to make progress on re-equipping Devises with a railway station, or Devises Parkway railway station. Oh, wait a minute, we can't have a station without a rail strategy. So whether it'll be of good quality, what it'll say, and exactly when it'll come out for the next round, I do not know. The second little update is that the Wiltshire Framework LC WIP, Local Cycle Walking and Cycling Walking Infrastructure Plan, and even the Salisbury LC WIP are with officers being prepared to be published, put to cabinet, or what have you. So that's coming up very, very soon indeed, but we know nothing about what they might contain. So that's all I can tell you at the moment, except that the LTP4 report is supposed now to go to the next cabinet meeting, which I think is going to be the 11th of November. Meanwhile, some of us did hold a meeting of the Wiltshire Climate Transport Topical Group last Thursday, and I intend to hold them monthly again now, unless anyone wants to take over. So the next transport topic group will be on Thursday, the 24th of October, 7 p.m. on Zoom, and we'll get an email out before that. Plenty to think about and do on active travel, rail, roads, and so on. So I hope that some people can show up for that, especially new faces on any aspect of transport: bus, rail, roads, cycling, walking. Luckily, we haven't got a major airport. All right. Oh, and I will add that the cabinet member seems surprisingly interested in talking about ways they could mitigate traffic problems at the A303 at Stonehenge, now that the Highways England project has imploded financially, but whether active travel is likely to be any part of that, I really don't know. Anyway, so that's all you get from me on that particular update. Okay, it's 8:05. So just shall I also talk about the next item, reviewing the Wiltshire Climate Team's update. So now annually, used to be what, every 3 months or 6 months, the Wiltshire Council Climate Team produces an update on Wiltshire Council's progress in responding to the climate emergency. Now, there was a report to council, there's a separate greenhouse gas report, there's the easy to read detailed report, which is the main update. Then I think there's another document or two. I've been able to access them since, well, was it the previous cabinet meeting almost a month ago, but I just haven't been able to get my head around reading them all. And what I think I'd like to ask is anyone able to sort of join a little reading group where each person could digest a study and digest part of their climate update? I want to say Wiltshire Council's annual update on its response to the climate emergency is core to what we're trying to do, influence Wiltshire to have its own emissions lowered, but above all, to have the whole county's emissions lowered. Wiltshire is on track to have its emissions lowered to so-called net zero by 2030. That suggests to me that their targets are unambitious, or that they've done some creative accounting using green energy tariffs, or that they're thinking of some sneaky offsets. They're also not including everything that's a scope 1 or scope 2 or scope 3 source of emissions. But I need to ask if anyone could scrutinize even one of the shorter ones of these documents, or even just a piece of one of them, so that we can get a coherent Wiltshire Climate Alliance response back to them. I'm into doing the greenhouse gas one. Tim, you've got a hand up.
That was a volunteering hand, Andrew. Sorry, did you hear? I'll do some reading.
You've lost him. You're muted now, Andrew.
I beg your pardon. Catherine's also said send a link. Mel, brilliant. Thanks. The link will be to the cabinet meeting of, when was it? In September, early September, if I've got that right. I'll try and find it in next few minutes before the meeting ends, because the documents were referred to there. There's one document that's quite long, but not many words per page, because it's designed for attractive, easy reading with lots of graphics and so on, and also very accessible to read. But if people could read it, do a bit of critical thinking, we can then collate answers, especially if more than one person can read each document, because sometimes one person misses a trick. That would be great. I specifically, when I spoke to Cabinet last time, I said, nothing that I'm saying is any endorsement of either your progress or the report, nor any criticism, because from the previous occasion, I said something in the meeting spontaneously, and they stole it as a soundbite to say we approve of their progress and we approve of their report, which wasn't what I intended at all. So that's all we needed was a few people to opt into that, and thank you very much. Now, kind of any questions or comments on that, first of all, because I want then to turn to the possibility of a Wiltshire and Swindon COP, and shortly go into breakouts for, say, 10 minutes after introducing that and having a quick group-wide discussion. All right, I'll go on into that then. So we, in the steering group and perhaps in a previous meeting, thought of having another annual get-together for Wiltshire Climate Alliance. And it would still be possible to have, perhaps early in the new year, a social gathering at Langford Lakes or somewhere there, or Devizes Corn Exchange. Inward-looking, socialising, talking about Wiltshire Climate Alliance and our strategy and the ways forward and our priorities and our visions. But then came the news that there's a Dorset COP, which will be on the 2nd of November in Bournemouth. And I could put a link in the chat and encourage people to go along. That'll be a Saturday at a venue at Bournemouth University. And in talking to Lynn Trigwell, the head of Wiltshire's climate team, because they want to do something again like they did earlier this summer, which was a showcase of their climate and nature or environmental activities across their teams. The possibility for Rose of having a COP, a conference of the parties, that we would organise, or we would co-organise with Wiltshire Council and possibly Swindon Borough Council, in which we try to get businesses, organisations, entities related to the Wiltshire Council itself, public sector bodies, to come to the table like they do in the international COPs, but preferably without so many oil and gas lobbyists, and present what they're doing. Have they got a climate strategy? Have they got targets? Have they got a journey to net zero? Have they got a delivery plan? Have they made some progress? And I've been asked to be very mindful that we need carrots and sticks with these people, been asked by Wiltshire Council, to let them showcase the progress that they've made. But my angle on that would be that we also ask them to up their game and come to the table with a fresh commitment. And we could talk to them about that beforehand, what that commitment might be. So Wiltshire Council climate team have said that if this was, for instance, on a Friday and a Saturday, the Friday part could be take place in County Hall, free of charge to us. We do want Swindon to be involved. Apart from anything else, that's one way of ensuring us against being co-opted by Wiltshire Council into it becoming a Wiltshire Council event with the help of Little Wiltshire Climate Alliance. We want to make sure that we have our autonomy and our control. It's quite a big, ambitious thing to deliver, even if we work with the council. And so we should only go into it if we're willing to start quite soon and have a core team making plans and reaching out to businesses and public sector organizations and doing a hell of a lot of other pieces of preparation. So although we raised this last month, I still want to get a feel for how much the people here would feel that's a good thing to do and whether it's worthwhile, and then whether people would like to have any particular involvement. So I'll stop there. Let's have a quick talk, and we might frame the terms of going into some breakout rooms. And in those breakouts, what we want to do, for instance, people might want to just brainstorm some organizations they think we should get coming along, or even not coming along, or some thoughts about what we might want to have in the event and what we might want not to have in the event. Is that at all clear? I didn't have any notes, so I just winged it just now. Do you? And it could be, for instance, sometime in April, partly because our talented event organizer, Christian, is coming back from a long trip abroad around that time, and he might help with the infrastructure of PA systems and lighting and sound and the perhaps musical evening at the end. Any comments or questions so far?
Just one quickie. I mean, April is just running up to the Wiltshire Council election, so probably March or May might be better. times.
I think that someone's raised that point. There's the idea of a period of purdah and so on when councils can't make major policy decisions because of local government elections. When are the elections? Early May?
Yeah, right at the beginning of May. I mean, the more to the point, all the councillors, and we do want the council to be strongly involved, will be busy campaigning and that. So
that might be an argument for late March, very early April, or for putting it off till after the elections, which is also slightly iffy for different reasons. So the timing, you've raised the question that the timing is a tricky issue because of the local government elections. We have to leave that hanging for now.
Can I just say on that one? I think it's as I think Jacky said already, or maybe not said today. Jacky had said that Stacey from the climate team in the council are trying to sound as if they're trying to run a takeover, but I think we should be talking to them as soon as, because if they are involved, they need to also agree that it's in March or May. And I think that's one of the main things I would suggest we do as soon as possible, is have a quick round table with them to see what their view is, how they see it, how we see it. And I think the whole thing about this meeting, our members' meeting, is that if anybody's got any really good ideas about what we might do with what Andrew's just been talking about, then chuck it on the table. There's no no's or yeses about anything tonight. It's just let's have a brainstorm about the sorts of things we might be able to do, which will draw and get business to network in a different way, network about climate and the impact of climate on their business and other people's business. What a great place to bring businesses in, bring those businesses talking to each other. Oh, I've done this, I've done that, blah, blah, blah. Or I haven't done anything because I don't give a shit about climate. You get those sort of extreme positions, but that's the whole point about the conference of parties. You get people talking to each other. So please, if you've got any thoughts whatsoever about that, everything from Dyson down to your local bricklayer, that's the sort of range of businesses we might be talking about. But Jacky, can you just confirm that Stacey does want us?
I thought it was rather lovely because she wanted to talk to me about it. She didn't know that I knew about it, and she was very excited. And I felt that was the trickle-down effect of Andrew talking to Lynn Trigwell. Obviously, it had gone through as a really positive energy through the council. I think where we can really play our part is to have a lot more, as Bill says, a lot more good ideas, a broader focus, whereas Wiltshire Council do tend to sort of close in a little bit on themselves, and we can also bring in a wider audience and population in. Their last event was well attended by stands, but no external audience, as I understand. So really,
that's quite right. So we had a it wasn't a COP, it was just that they offered a day in the atrium with people coming in, and it was supposed to be a public event. And we got probably I don't know, 10, no, maybe more, maybe 20 stands of various types about climate. And it was a great networking event for us because we were talking to all those stands.
Yeah.
but about 3 public turned up and 10 councillors, so it wasn't very well thought through by them.
They did acknowledge that it was a bit of a pilot, and Vicky said, she did it to how it worked. She didn't promote it. She did acknowledge that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's me. Okay. So,
yes, John and Debbie and then Tim.
Just a quick thought about timing, bearing in mind the election in early May. I was just thinking that with regard to the council and the councillors, people coming up for election, they might be completely preoccupied before the election. And if we want to get people involved, the politicians involved and councillors really involved and engaged for the future, it might be better to hold it, I wonder, just after the election in May. then you've got newly elected councillors who are kind of motivated to kind of get on and do something, maybe. Just a thought.
Okay, thanks. And Tim, that's a fair thought to have.
We asked for suggestions. I think whatever our evaluation is, if we could have a WCA's thoughts about progress, that would be a great time to circulate them. I do not think that we should go jointly into something that will be dominated by Wiltshire Council.
Good point. And we have a dilemma there. Do we throw in with them, or do we go our own way and not get?
Maybe we could have a stand there, but it won't be our event. And we could perhaps try and drive engagement, because any engagement is likely to be positive. Because you're just talking about climate and nature. How can it be negative, really? But I wouldn't try and sort of co-own it personally.
Okay, and that's what we have to confront. I mean, for instance, if we had a stand at their event on a Friday, but if we had an event on the Saturday, which wouldn't be at County Hall, then we would be controlling that. And it might mean that businesses and public sector people can actually come along because they're not working that day, or maybe it means they can't come along because they're not working that day. I really don't know. This is something we need to think through. Judy, you have a hand up.
Yes, please. I was wondering whether to mention this, but I was interested to hear about the event you had, where you had lots of wonderful stands and almost no public. Because the group I work with most is particularly concerned about engaging the general public. And we're having an event on November the 14th. We're having a presentation, or hopefully a discussion led by Professor David Walton, who is he's writing the climate literacy program for Royal Holloway University, and which will probably be extended to all the universities. He's very knowledgeable about all this. And we're having an event called Can We Afford Net Zero? Myth busting with Professor Dave Walton. Now, people will have heard about him because we had a stunningly well-attended event in May when we showed the film 2040. I think I mentioned this to you all. I told you all about it, about the kind of world we could have if we woke up, became engaged, and made it happen. So we said at the time that, people loved it. We were thrilled. We filled the town hall. People were really excited and happy because there has been a heavy weight of disinformation increasingly over the last few years. I mean, the last government really put its back into trying to convince the public that net zero would require lots of sacrifice, that it would stop the economy, it would crash the economy, and so forth. In fact, as I'm sure most of you realize, the policies we want will actually make everything work better, including, we'll make business work better, we'll make everything work better. But busting those myths is a project in itself. So showing this film, to saying to people, look, actually, it's different, there's hope, and so forth. We're really looking forward to having this follow-up. It's on the 14th of November.
Judy's frozen. Judy, you're frozen, and perhaps you can't hear us.
I'm sorry. Can you hear us? If it works, if it's as lively and as well as we hope and intend, I imagine, I'm sure Dave would be willing to, to take it around to other areas. well, I shouldn't speak for him like that, but he's a brilliant, very charismatic and engaging presenter. He fills people with hope, which is what is needed to get us in action. So stop there. 14th of November, I did want to give you a heads up anyway. Thanks. But
Thank you. Is there anything you can also pop into the chat if you haven't already about that, Judy, or again?
Sure. And I'll send, we've just had our first poster made. So if I send that to you, maybe that could be, maybe you could promote that poster as well.
Right, now, what's the mood about going to breakouts on brainstorming any ideas on any aspect of having a Swindon and Wiltshire COP, preferably owned by us and not Wiltshire Council, perhaps partner with Wiltshire Council, can talk about the date and timing issues, talk about, I'd love to hear people's ideas on stakeholders they'd like to invite, or any other aspect, just bright ideas. What's the mood on going into breakouts for 10 minutes this evening? People up for that? Nodding heads or shaking heads? No, yes, no. I see one shaking head. Or people might want to rather leave, or we can just carry on. Now there's what, 19 of us at the moment talking in the entire group. How does that sound? I didn't count how many nodding heads were going into breakouts, and there's now Julian, help me out here.
No, I was just going to say, I think it usually does produce some helpful, gives everyone a chance, more people a chance to speak. It does usually produce good results, and people usually enjoy it afterwards. So,
okay, so if people don't want to join their breakout, they can either be thrown into a breakout and not participate, or they can leave now, or they can join the breakout and change their minds. I'll ask Julian to do the technology that throws us into, say, 3 or 4 breakouts.
Here we go.
One idea would be to put notes into the chat, which of course won't be in the main chat, but if you've been in a breakout and you do use the chat, can you make sure you save the chat and somehow get it through to the steering group, perhaps through the contact email address? And Julian's
here we go,
firing away. We've survived with 16 people still on the Zoom, not counting where there's 2 people in one screen. Well done. We were in breakout room 3, if I remember rightly. How many were there, Julian? Oh, we've got 17 actually.
4, yeah.
4. Is anyone willing to admit to have been in breakout room 1 and have anything to say?
Yep,
coming back
breakout
from
room
that?
1. I'm breakout room 1. Other people are in breakout room 1. Jessica and John and Jacky. Quick summary from me, and then chuck in everyone else. So we got to a point where we were talking about two potential scenarios. One where we have, I feel like almost an internal event where we're talking to lots more sustainability groups. Jacky said that's how Dorset COP is going to be run, because it's effectively a group of like-minded people getting together to work out how to work better together, I guess. And then the other extreme is to say, no, we're going to invite lots of businesses in, and we're going to get those businesses to talk to each other about how they might do things better or get guidance or whatever. So you've got the external, the outward looking, and the inward looking in terms of climate, because we all were in that bubble already. So that was one thing. And then there was a suggestion that maybe we could if it was a 2-day event, the second day was Saturday, then business people wouldn't turn up because they're not on business hours. But potentially we could make that a WCA day, but it may be a damp squib after the day before. So how do we deal with that? And then John suggested that maybe we had day 1 where it was, and it would have to be 2 weekdays, or like a key event day with a limited number of people, and then going to day 2 with those people effectively talking to a much bigger group about the things they'd agreed to talk about the day before, if you see what I mean. So there were lots of thoughts on that, and I think it's the challenge is to work out what is best. Oh, and the other thing John said, and having listened to him, I think I agree, is that if we're going to do this, the bigger outward-looking event, we should do it after the election, because you've then got a settled council with a settled new people going to be in there for the next 4 years, and they're more likely to want to pick it up. And we would have, didn't say this in the meeting, but we would have had the chance to influence those guys in the election. So we've been able to poke them before they got elected, and then stand in front of them afterwards and say, "You said you'd do this," and then we could start poking. So it would actually work in a lot of ways rather than doing it earlier. But that's just first thoughts. Anybody else want to kick in from anything we said in Group 1?
Just
Need to unmute.
Sorry.
No, you need to unmute. I said, but you have. Thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just saying we could invite MPs along as well, because I know there are at least two MPs who would be very keen to speak at an event like this. Roz Savage and Brian Matthew. I know both of them reasonably well, and I'm sure they would be very happy to come and speak, and that could add some attraction, as well as, of course, the businesses that we want to well, help really, and so on.
I'll just add a point then. If we hold it in May after the election, assuming the election's what, the first Thursday in May, something like the 1st of May or the 8th of May?
The 1st, yeah.
The 1st. Last year, well, in 2021, council met on the Tuesday, it would be the 20th of May 2025. They met about 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks later. So we could always hold it right after the election and before the Wiltshire Council has its first full meeting. In other words, in the when the elected council is in limbo. Good or bad idea, I don't know. So anything else from Group 1? I think we may have overlapped our topics, but usefully got different viewpoints in the different groups. Group 2, who remembers being in a group called Group 2?
So that was us. Catherine was going to feedback, I think.
Yeah, because I wrote a list. So I think we were mainly thinking about the second day, as in on the Saturday, and having it as a WCA event. And mostly I've got a list of things that we could possibly suggest do. And we were thinking about getting health services along to talk about their best practices as well, because health services tend to get left out of things. I thought we might possibly hold a citizens' assembly on a topic at all. Maybe get some experts in that could give us some talks, do some active travel promotions. Oh, I didn't mention this one, but I had it on my list, a climate literacy talk, maybe get some engagement, maybe have a film show and then some discussion points afterwards, provide some vegan food, plant-based foods to show there are alternative ways of eating, and maybe the organisations can come and share best practice and then have a social event in the evening. So I was thinking more interactive with people that come along. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm already thinking of which cargo bike companies I can invite to come and show off their wares. Great.
Just to add to that very briefly. So yeah, we thought probably as late in May as Christian can make it would be ideal if he doesn't get too busy, because the councillors will need a little bit of time to sort themselves out and settle in. Otherwise, they're just going to be totally distracted. And also, one of the key things I see coming out of it is the opportunity to form with the stakeholders who we invite and get together an ongoing climate and nature partnership like other places have. So yeah, that's all.
I agree, and I think that Lynn Trigwell was hinting that this could be whether, if there was a collaborative event, that might be a suitable launch pad for a climate and nature partnership, which Wiltshire and Swindon Council seem to think that they will lead on the creation of it. And I guess there could be worse organisations. But it's open to the partnership, the prospective partnership members, what it's called. And I would really like us to lobby for it to be called a climate and nature partnership and not just a nature partnership.
Sorry, there was one more thing. We thought just at the end of it, there ought to be maybe some sort of declaration or a commitment that people or organisations could make. And that might be a great publicity thing then to do.
How about net zero by 2029? Joke.
We're muted, don't we?
I'm sorry, group 3 I was in, but over to Tony initially or completely on that.
Okay. Yeah, so I think there's some similarities there, but I think there was a feeling that it would be stronger with Swindon and Wiltshire working together. Especially, so yeah, one of the thoughts was that we actually could look at having the 3 different sectors groups, or maybe 4 different groups actually. So we could have business, local government, community, and public services. I think we talked about schools and health servicing. So each of those could be equal weight. So no one actually dominates particularly because, you know, we're all in it together. But you know, there might be some mileage in Swindon and Wiltshire trying to, you know, being presented together. There might be a little bit of competition, possibly. Just encourage each other to be a little bit more ambitious. Might be a helpful thing. The location, if we were to kind of do one event and maybe actually somewhere more neutral, and a suggestion maybe Chippenham College in Chippenham or something, or maybe a large academy school or something like that. There's a sort of halfway house. The what else do we say? Yeah, the date, in terms of the date, yeah, it's all afterwards. Obviously, we're Easter holidays, then the election, but certainly after the election to try and tap into any new energies that get brought in. But obviously, Swindon is not having an election that year, so it will be mostly Wiltshire, potentially with new Wiltshire councillors. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. We did there. I suppose the question is, that's a lot to pack in. Do we do it over 1 day or 2 days? Maybe a 2-day thing, you know, so it can appeal to the business sector. Maybe the government sector might be more looking more a weekday, you know, and the weekend might be more sort of community orientated. But give them equal weight, so no one dominates. We could perhaps be the facilitator.
Thanks. I'll chip in on that. I was in the group. I thought the suggestion with Chippenham was excellent. You can get to it from Swindon easier than you can from Trowbridge, probably by public transport, although there are some trains. The college, we could explore whether there are facilities, and presumably they got much more availability if they're willing to open for hiring on the Saturday than on the Friday when they're busy being a college, depending of course on the holidays. I also raised one question in the group, which was, what about the option of not going ahead with it at all? But we didn't come to any conclusion on that because we ran out of time. I just wanted to be devil's advocate and say this is a big thing to organise. We'll have to figure out what we're doing, and then a fairly large group or several different teams put it all together. Anyway, thanks, Tony. I assume there was a 4th breakout group.
Yeah, I was in group 4.
Go for it.
Can I go for it?
Yep.
Yeah, the advantage of going last is, of course, most of the good ideas have come out from the other groups already. And in all honesty, we did cover some of the same ground that has been covered elsewhere. We thought after the election, for the same reason that's already been given by other groups, to get the new councillors on board. And I think we felt that doing it with Wiltshire Council would be good, as we're trying to get the local authorities on board. They have a team that's employed to look at climate issues, and this is right, you know. So in a sense, they're professionals here, and we're just the unpaid amateurs. And then the other thought was like someone else has already mentioned, whether we could combine something with the Citizens' Assembly somehow, you know, whether we could maybe get a questions from Wiltshire Climate Team that we wanted addressed by Citizens' Assembly. That might bring in people that are interested in that aspect of making decisions as well as the climate change people. A personal view, we mentioned potential locations as being Trowbridge, and personally I don't find Chippenham very handy from Salisbury, but that's the way it goes. I think that's where we are in Wiltshire, isn't it? I take the point that if we want to get Swindon involved, and that would be a good idea to see what's going on there, it would make more sense. But yeah, I don't know whether there's anything else from Group 4 that anyone else wants to chip in, but please do.
You covered it nicely.
Yes, I take your point. Well, there's no single town or city that's convenient for everyone. Swindon, Salisbury, Trowbridge, Chippenham, Azerbaijan. We can rotate.
But they sometimes have things in devices because that's equally inconvenient for everybody.
Yes.
That is true. That's a very good point. And our event in devices was probably successful for that very reason, because it took some commitment.
It was actually, it actually was brilliant in devices. Good choice. And even though I thought, Christ, that's a stupid place to have it, but it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Andrew, can I ask that everyone takes a photo of their notes and either sends it to me or sends it to you or puts it in the chat or something, so we've got a complete record of all those things, because there's quite a wide load of stuff there that's been talked about, and unless somebody's been very judiciously copying all that down, Julian.
Well, we got the recording, and yeah, I suggest send it to contact@Wiltshire Climate Alliance, then it'll go to all
just fire it off,
parties.
because then we've got the notes. That would be very, very helpful. And the other thing, Andrew, I don't know if you've asked, but is there who would like to join a working group?
Trust Bill to ask that key question.
Just let us put it in the chat again. I got quite a lot of response last time, but if you do want to be a small or a large part of that working group, please put your name down.
Anyone who's had the stamina to stay at this meeting till nearly 9 o'clock, I think might be able to contribute in some small way. Jacky, is that a hand up to join the working group or a hand up to say something?
It is that. It was also to say it would be great to profile not just our own local groups, but bigger groups like, say, Solar for Schools, and there are lots of other organisations that we want Wiltshire Council to be aware of, and other sustainable groups aware of. So even if they what I've often seen at events is that they can have stands and then just have like a 5-minute slot on the main stage to explain what they do, which means it brings like the Centre of Sustainable Energy and so on, and carbon literacy, and just not a major part, but just they're there and everyone can go and talk to them, and can open people's minds to other things.
Excellent idea.
Could I just add in point there? In terms of the organisation, I think don't forget that there are other networks out there within the business world and whatever who could be, if you can get the right contact, they could be doing some of the convening on their side of things as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily all have to be down to us. We could be an initiator, but maybe, and perhaps coordinate to some extent, but not necessarily having to connect with everyone.
That suggests that we ought to connect quite early on with the Swindon and Wiltshire LEP. We ought to connect with the Western Chamber of Commerce. I'm aware that the
disbanded.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I blinked and missed that. Oh,
yeah.
Luckily they left a rail strategy behind them, so that's good. Also, would anyone fancy a pure social event for Wiltshire Climate Alliance and its members and its member groups and their members, perhaps early in the new year, where we get together, for instance, in Devizard or at Langford Lakes, and just have conversations, shared food, music, and some interesting presentations,
And vegan
completely
food.
separate from this.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
have some fun.
Oh,
Show we've
Fun
all
event.
got legs.
because this COP thing sounds as if it's being pushed to late May. We were originally thinking, oh, shall we have an event in February or March? When does Christian go away, Bill? Is it halfway through January?
Yeah,
We could
till
consider
March.
having an
Well,
unambitious event that
Let's
would help
ask
us
him.
to
Let's ask
bond.
him to organise it and then go on holiday. So we better do it before Christmas.
Yes.
Guys, I'm sorry, I do have to go.
Thank you.
I have a 9 o'clock appointment, so I'm
Right.
going there. See you later.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I think I'll be reviewing the video with more interest even than usual. And Jessica's got a hand up. Is that a now hand, Jessica?
Yeah, it was just an AOB hand if we're doing AOB.
Sure, yes.
I'm okay to go ahead. So it was just to let everyone know that Wiltshire Wildlife Community Energy has a imminent community share offer coming up for the solar array on the Silverwood school at Rowde. They built a new class and block, and we've got a big array on there. We're looking to raise £500,000. The minimum share off will be, I think it's between £250 up to gosh, I can't remember what the maximum is, but it'll be a 5.5% return. They're going to do like a webinar on the 17th of October. I'm afraid I don't have the link for that just yet. With more information if you've got questions about it. It's through ethics, so you'll need to register with ethics. I'll just pop a link to our website in the chat, because that will have any update on there and any link to the share offer. But thank you. Please
thanks,
tell
Jessica.
your networks.
That's Wiltshire Wildlife Community Energy, is it?
Yes.
Thanks for that link. That's in the chat. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I thought this was an outstanding meeting. Any other business, please? Thanks for bringing us that, Jessica. That's very timely. Not for now. We've had enough. And particular thanks again to those who I haven't seen at meetings before. Joan, John and Debbie, or because of my defective memory, haven't registered at meetings recently. And everyone else for coming. I think we've got a lot to digest in the steering group and some things to get back to some of you on. I think we're in a reasonably healthy state. We've had some solid, heavy working groups doing consultation responses and so on recently. We know what that involves. We seem to be ready to do it again. Green Open Home is going to be fantastic, I'm absolutely sure. And I'm going to be doing some more visiting to some homes. And so whoever tipped me off that I can get an energy survey from Bath and West Community Energy, because I live in Bradford and Avon, thank you very much for that. So let's all go and eat our burnt or cold or whatever meal it is, or have a beer and a piece of ethical chocolate, and I'll see you all soon. Anyone who wants to stay behind, I'll be lingering for a few minutes for any suddenly other business or whatever you like. Okay?
Brilliant.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good
Thank you.
sharing, Andrew.